Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light released on Nintendo Switch is a standalone game with an official English localization. The game touts a couple of quality of life improvements, however, the original Japanese version of this game is actually already available to anyone with a Nintendo Switch Online account. So that means today we're going to review and compare these two versions to see which is best. First off, let's talk about the newly added features in the English game. Upon starting a new game, pressing the X button brings up a menu with the new features. Now, I really like what they did here with the aesthetics of this new features menu. It really looks and feels like it could be a part of the original base NES game. The fonts, the styles, the borders, and even the colors all match the menus in the original game. Now, in the Japanese version, if you're playing on the Nintendo Switch Online, entering its features menu takes a little bit away from the immersion like this new English version does, and makes it feel a lot more like you're playing an emulated game rather than an original NES game. Now, the first feature in this new features menu is the bookmark, and it does exactly what you think it does. It creates a bookmark that you can go resume your game in that same place later on. However, this feature in the English version is vastly inferior to the Japanese Nintendo Switch Online version. In the English version of this game, you can only have one freaking bookmark, whereas in the Nintendo Switch Online version or the Japanese version of this game, you can have 4 bookmarks. I really have no idea what Nintendo was thinking and why they didn't add in more of these. I'm one of those people who really likes to go back and experience part of the stories over and over again, and with bookmarks I'm able to do that. However, with just one bookmark in the new English release, I can't do that. And so in the sense of bookmarks, the Japanese version is vastly superior to the English version. Now, the next new feature in this new features menu is probably the best in the game, and that's the fast forward settings feature. This game hasn't aged very well in my opinion, and honestly kind of runs slow. So having a fast forward feature really makes this game more accessible, especially to people who really want to quickly experience what the first game in the Fire Emblem series was like. Now, one of the things I really like about this fast forward settings feature is the option to either fast forward all of the gameplay or just the CPU turns. Now, I definitely prefer only speeding up the CPU turns, and the reason for that is because when you speed up the entire game, all of the music gets sped up as well, and it just kind of feels weird to me. I really wish they had only sped up the animations and not the music, but I guess that's what they decided to do, and that's what we have to deal with. But anyways, it's still a really good feature, and in all honesty, because Nintendo Switch Online doesn't have this, it really makes the English game a lot more appealing. Now, next up is the ability to do turn rewinds. This once again is a great accessibility feature for people trying to quickly get through this game and experience the first story of Fire Emblem. You can actually rewind up to 20 turns, which is nice, but sadly I think this is a feature that's inferior to the Nintendo Switch Online version. The reason why is because in the Japanese version, you can rewind in a couple second intervals rather than doing turns, which means that if you die in a fight, you don't have to redo the whole round over, and you can simply rewind the fight and hopefully come up with either a new strategy for that one player, or you get lucky and don't die in that battle, which in my opinion makes the Nintendo Switch Online version a lot more accessible than the English version. Now, the last new feature is the change display feature, and there's 2 options for this. You can either have the normal version, which is really just a stretched out version of the original game, or you can have a pixel perfect version. Now, at first I thought this was a really nice touch to the game because I had forgotten that Nintendo Switch Online actually does have an option to change up the display in the game, and it has more options than this new English version does. So there is a 4:3 ratio option, a pixel perfect option, and finally there is a analog or CRT type option. And sadly again, this just makes the Nintendo Switch Online version just look a little bit better than the new English version. Now, for those of you wondering, yes, you can use a Nintendo Switch Nintendo Entertainment System controller with this game. The D-pad and the buttons work just fine, but there's no home button functionality, which makes sense since the controller was specifically built for Nintendo Switch Online only. Now, the most obvious difference between these two versions of the game is the language. Fire Emblem games are lengthy with a lot of story, and for those of you who don't read Japanese but do read English, this will be the first time you can officially experience the story of Marth in his NES debut. Now, for newer fans of the Fire Emblem series, this is going to be a great way to go back and see where everything started. However, if you don't care about the story, then you're probably better off with the Japanese version. You can watch a couple people play the English version online, and you'll probably get a good idea of how the control works and how the game works, and then you'll be able to play the Japanese version pretty easily, just without the story. Now, if you've never played this game before and are a fan of the Fire Emblem series, the English standalone version is definitely the way to go. The fact that you can play in English makes just understanding the story such a convenience, and the fast forward features really allow you to breeze through the slow parts of the game and make the game a lot more fun and enjoyable. Now, if you don't have $6 to spare or you just want to see and feel how this game plays, the Japanese one will probably do it for you. And if you're not a fan of the series, I really don't recommend this game. It really feels to me like this is more for the hardcore fans than for the beginners. I personally wish there would have been a physical version of this game, but knowing that I'll have at least the English downloaded version of this game long after Nintendo Switch Online has shut down is comforting. And that honestly makes this version of Fire Emblem and the Shadow Dragon worthy of my $6. Well, I've been Nate the Great, and if you're into this type of thing, please hit that like and subscribe button. Alrighty then, bye-bye.